Abbott. Mr. Bratton.
Present.
Mr. Johnson.
Present.
Mr. Millis.
Present.
Ms. Parker.
Present.
May join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now we have approval of agenda, and we do have an addendum. Just have an addendum. Number 4. Are there any changes that need to be made?
Yeah, I have two
Okay.
family members. On B5. So we want to put voting line after 4.
Where?
10.
I'm sorry.
10B.
Yeah, 10B, I'm sorry.
Page 3.
Yeah.
Page 3, technically, okay.
The voting line after, he's requesting voting line after
I'm
4.
looking at the wrong one then, because I don't find the 10.
And then on
I still don't see it.
10C,
He said 10B.
I'm on the next one.
Oh, that's 10 there. Okay, I didn't see that.
So on 10C, number 9, put a voting line after number 8.
After which one? You just want a voting line? Anything else?
Yeah, then you put a voting line after number 9.
Sure.
That's it.
Plus we have the agenda. Okay, seeing no other, are there any other changes? Or anybody have any questions? If so, do we have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Thank you. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbott.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Bratton.
Yes.
Ms. Parker.
Yes.
Mr. Millis.
Yes. Next, we have approved the minutes from the following meetings: A, September 10th, 2018 regular meeting, and B, September 19th planning meeting. Are there any changes that need to be made? I looked through, I didn't see any myself. That doesn't mean I didn't miss.
Yeah, we had there was one adjustment on the planning meeting. It had the calendar to be approved on the November 12th, or I'm sorry, the hearing on the 12th. Obviously, the hearing's tonight, so it's item E3 on the planning should be, we've already changed it, but obviously the hearing is tonight.
Anything else? Any other question on? Can we have a motion to approve the minutes from those two meetings, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Second. Second. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Ms. Parker.
Yes.
Mr. Bratton.
Yes.
Mr. Abbott.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Abstain.
And Mr. Millis.
Yes. And number 6, hearing for proposed 2019-2020 school calendar. Anyone have any questions? Anything from the audience? It's huge tonight. Anyone? A whole 3 people, of which one had to be here anyway. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Please.
If you look at the proposed calendar, there are copies up here. Daniel, the BCEA president, 8th grade language arts teacher, and I worked back and forth representing BCEA and the administration and the board. And one common theme has been that school is starting earlier and earlier. We talked about this. I've had formal complaints or suggestions. I've had informal complaints from parents just kind of catch up. We are limited somewhat. Our teachers' contracts are 185 days. By contract, we have to have 2 comp days, parent-teacher conferences when teachers work those. There are work days that need to be scheduled before school and one contractually in the middle of the year. And of course, we need to wrap things up at the end of the year. So the 3 work days and the 2 comp days take care of 5 of those. And then the rest of it's really flexible. The 180 days is flexible. We need to be over, in certain grade levels at 1,001 hours. Of course, we want to exceed that in case we have calamity days and things that happen. But our teachers are paid on 185-day teachers contract. So, we have those professional development days that can fluctuate. This proposed calendar keeps 4 of those. And what it did was the teachers, according to Mr. Grove, the teachers were overwhelmingly in support of this calendar, or a version of it, and then the administrative team felt that at the beginning of the year, we don't have enough professional development time, because we've only had one professional development day, but what consists on that day is a meeting or a breakfast, a district gathering. We provide time for BCEA meeting, we have our building staff meetings, and then we try to do additional PD for new programs or resources that we're using, and it's too hard to squeeze it all in, and we feel very rushed for that one day. So what this did was basically add another full day of teacher PD that will allow us to do a full day of PD with our staff, not counting our building meetings and BCEA meetings and district breakfasts and those types of things. So it did shorten the Fairfield County Fair Days. Prior to the 15-16 school calendar, we used to have two school days for the fair. This goes back to 2 days, which would be a Thursday and Friday. Thursday is kind of the school days at the fair. Obviously, we do have students participating on the weekend prior to the first weekend of the fair, and then some students participating on Monday and Tuesday. But I did do a lot of research and looked back since we made the adjustment to the 3 fair days, and looked at the data with the number of students participating in 17-18 and 18-19 with the fair district-wide. And on Monday, October 9th, 2017, we had 3.3% of our students, or 66 out of 1,974, missing school for, which is an excused absence for 4-H or FFA participation. On the Tuesday before break started, which would have been October 10th, 2017, we had 59 students out of 1,974 for 2.9%. In 18-19, this year on Monday, we had 57 out of 2,015 students for 2.8%. On Tuesday, October the 9th, we had 58 out of 2,015 students for 2.9% of our students missing for the fair. We've actually averaged about 55 students. We've seen an increase in absences on Monday and Tuesday due to strictly vacation days, families looking at those 2 days and saying, oh, we only got 2 days of school, so we're going on vacation. We've been averaging about 55 student absences on Monday and Tuesday due to families looking at that week and saying that's not worth going. So, you know, I'm not saying we want to impact vacations. We want families to have vacations, but it's becoming, I think it's becoming kind of, in some perspectives, kind of irrelevant for people to send their kids to school, where we believe Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday could be valuable instructional days. And again, you have anywhere from 2.8% to 3.3% over the last 2 years. And traditionally, we had 2 days for the fair until the 15-16 school year. So
What do we usually have for absences? What would be
a normal day? Boy, that's a good question. It would be a little bit less than that, but not much. Just so you know, if you look at this proposed calendar,
Sorry, I have a question for you there.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, because I mean, FFA and 4-H are probably the ones at the high school level. You ran the numbers of those at that, because they're the ones that usually are out of school for the week.
Yeah, in fact, I can tell you, in the 17-18 school year at Bloom Carroll Primary School, on Monday we had 6 students out for the fair, or 4-H at the fair. On Tuesday, we had 5 students out. That's out of 470 students. At Bloom Carroll Intermediate School, on Monday, October 9th, 2017, we had 11 students out. At the intermediate school on Tuesday in 2017, we had 6 students out. At the middle school, on Monday, we had 33, and on Tuesday, 29 students out. At Bloom Carroll High School, we had 16 out on Monday and 19 on Tuesday. So those are the numbers for the 17-18 school year. But again, if you add these up, it represents 2.8, 2.93% consistently across the board. The one thing about the calendar, if we stayed on track like we're doing right now and just kept doing what we're doing, we're going to start school. We're going to bring new staff back on August 7th.
Oh, geez.
which is a Friday in 2 years. Next year will be August 9th, the following year will be August 7th. Students will be starting on August 12th in a couple years. What this does is basically the teachers, the new staff will start a week later. The students start about 8 days later. We make up the one fair day. So typically we're starting on a Wednesday in August. We're getting out on Thursday before Memorial Day, and then Friday before Memorial Day is a work day. All this will do is bump it back to after Memorial Day. Thursday will be the last day for students, and Friday will be the last day for staff.
But still,
So it's 1 week.
Still in May,
yeah. So that's a little bit about the calendar. Just wanted to make sure it was explained to you.
Sean, have you noticed, or Mark, you might notice too, I try to look up legislation on this because I know it was talked about starting school
After Labor Day.
Yeah.
Have you guys, I haven't seen an update on any of that.
No.
have you?
Well, they're probably out of session because they're running for re-election.
Yeah.
All of them are
It's
out.
still sitting there in committee, but it hasn't gone much further. I'll be shocked if the state does pass it because so many districts have different needs.
Right.
But I think the message is you're starting school too early, and that was largely because of state testing. That is important, but that's not the most important thing we do is test students. I think we have to value community and family as well in what we do, and I just feel that this is a more appropriate time of the year to start school, which the first day for students will be August 22nd on Thursday.
That made me think of something else, not necessarily calendar, but I got a thing in the mail, maybe some of your other board members did too, from Representative Ron Hood, saying that he was gonna sponsor a bill dealing with having less testing, and did you get a copy of that too?
Yeah.
And what were your thoughts about it?
Well,
Where's Ron running for that?
I'm all about, we need accountability. We need to be able to measure growth of students, but I don't think we need to have anywhere close to the amount of testing that we
That we
have.
have.
In the high stakes testing, the first time a kid sits on a computer to take a state test, it's a high stakes test in terms of third graders in the fall of their third grade year being held back if they don't score a certain score. Now they have a couple more opportunities throughout the course of
Right.
third grade, but their first experience to state testing holds them back
Yes,
if they don't score a certain score.
right.
So
I remember when it was a fourth grade reading guarantee, like 15 or 20 years ago, and I was still working for Central OEA doing the, grassroots lobbying stuff. And I was at a state house meeting in Senate Ed, and there were numerous parents brought their kid in, actually brought the kid and said, Johnny here threw up at home before he was supposed to take the high stakes test, and they got sick at school too. And once they heard that about 5 or 6 times, it kind of made an impact on them, but it took that to do it.
Daniel, please feel free if you have any comments about the calendar. From behalf of the teachers.
I think part of the misses that we're getting for fair, those Monday, Tuesdays, when we have additional fair kids out too, is that certain groups show certain days.
That's true.
So some of those kids, whether we do a 2-day or a 3-day, they're gonna miss those days anyway. So I think this was a good, working with Sean in the committee, this was a pretty good compromise. The majority of the people were pretty happy with it.
I know
we
as
adjusted it a few times.
I know as I left Thursday from the combine demolition derby, one of my favorite things, and they were having a horse deal at the other end where I was parked at, and I thought, wow, here it is Thursday evening, kind of late, and they were still doing that. They were just announcing the winner of that, and I thought,
And we looked at options to find that other day. We looked at Christmas break. We looked at coming back on, January 2nd and 3rd. Teachers really were not interested in that. I think they settled for fair day more than those days in January.
How about
One
teacher
question I have though
absences?
is around spring break. I know it's probably the same way when we went to school. We always have a week. Why do we always go to Thursday, Friday, and give them Monday? I mean, what's the attendance rate for that, like those days for that, for
I'm
spring
sorry.
break?
For spring break,
Yeah.
the
I mean, did you have a week off?
Fairfield
'Cause I
County
know
schools are
yeah.
typically, not like Lancaster City, but the Fairfield County schools are typically, they have shorter spring breaks because of that fall
Okay.
fair is the main reason.
What about teacher absences during fair? With
Um,
your dentist appointment that's scheduled?
Yeah, we do have some staff members that have children that participate. They have personal days that they utilize. It hasn't been, if you look at it in ASOP, I mean, typically we can have up to 4 or 5 staff members per building out at one time for personal days. We haven't had issues or concerns communicated with us, but the attendance is generally about the same as it is every day.
And there's no voting line or anything.
No, it's just,
Moving on to public participation and the primary school updates.
So tonight, I thought I would like to share with you, we don't really have a new curriculum that we started this year, so we're thankful. But we did start an online program, Class Dojo. I don't know if it's been brought in, Mr. Abbott, hooked onto it. But we liked it because it aligned with our current PBIS system. And so what it is, it's an online classroom management and communication tool. So what's nice about it is that obviously students, are showing their pause laws in the classroom, in the hallway, in the cafeteria, and any staff member can add a point to that child, or you can add it to the entire class because they've been recognized for doing something good. And it also ties in with the specialist teachers, so they can recognize individual students as well as classes as they go to specials. So, you'll see the aides carrying, Mr. Thomas worked with us to get, the moving aids with iPads that have that link to it, and, teachers are out in the hallway, with it, and so the kids, then are able to earn the points and then cash in for rewards. On the opposite end, if they're not doing something that, they should be doing or making a bad response back. So this is building wide, K2. We do have close to 100% participation with the program. For those that did not sign up, they get the hard copy sent home. The kids still earn points, but the parents just get that in a hard copy instead of the online tool. And our goal is, either mid-year, we'll want to survey the parents that are using it to see if that's really a tool that they like, or they like to see it continue. Another piece that I think is linked very closely with the PBIS is the sense of privacy, because when you're carrying around either the color charts or they went to like those little cookie trays that have the colors, it's just there. It's in the classroom. It's open. Any visitor could see if the child was struggling that day. And whereas with Class Dojo, it can just minimize. Nobody needs to see anything. It's really just the business of the teacher and the child and the parent. So that was another feature that I really liked about the system.
Maybe we get that on Sean and Travis, what do you think? No, I'm just kidding.
A lot of deducted points there.
It'd be a lot of points.
But I really just do like the whole rewards and recognizing the good that's happening. We still do our pause laws, that will never go away, but it's just another way to reinforce that positive behavior.
No, I'll comment now.
Okay.
That might be better now. I think it works really well. One, in today's society, I think everybody wants instantaneous feedback. And I have it on my phone, and it's great, I think, with whether it's a picture or whether, and the kids too, like my kid will come home and be like, I got a point, or so the kids are aware too. So I think you have not only buy-in from probably kids, but also parents, and it allows that communication if a kid is struggling. Maybe they don't know, and all of a sudden they get all the way to you giving a call. Well, how to get that far? Like, I may have addressed it sooner. So I think it's a great app, and I hope you continue to use it.
And there is, the points are set up, like he says, there's, so many 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, it's kind of handled in the classroom, teacher, we have those, the levels set up. But then we did establish, like, if you take 5 to 7 points, you'll probably be, visit to me,
Right.
and we talk about it, but, yeah, so they're not automatically sent to me if they lose a point, so they gotta, really have
Right.
struggle in their day to even get to me, which I also, appreciate that, and, just that positivity, but thank you for that, it's nice to hear. Are you on it, Mr. Wilson? Like, yeah. Okay. I'll have to give it back.
And Kelly has
Okay.
Joe on it
And
also.
Kelly has- yeah.
No, I think the privacy issue is the biggest thing.
I think it is.
I mean, I can remember going back and seeing like, okay, that,
Yeah, it is,
I think that's
and that was
the privacy.
something that always kind of, bothered me. And also, I feel like it gives the students a little more flexibility within the whole classroom management. I mean, we tried with the color system of having it, a fluid, so that you dropped a color, you could earn that color back, and, that helped a little bit, but, these students are really buying in to, the rewards. And some, they don't even cost anything. It's like, bring your favorite, this is primary, bring your favorite stuffed animal to school, or still wanting to eat lunch with the teacher, those kinds of things that it really doesn't cost anything. Sit wherever you would like, or sit at the teacher's desk. I mean, just things like that. And they just really work to try to establish, the level that they want to and the reward that they want to earn. So.
We had something similar at the Boys Industrial School, which is a juvenile prison. They got a plus or minus point, but if they didn't get enough pluses, they got to stay longer. We never paddled anybody, so it was a little different than what you're talking about. Sorry.
Any questions or?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Everything else? Oh, okay. No, thank you. That's a good report, except that BIS thing. Anyway, number 8, treasurer's recommendations and reports. A, approve the September financial statements for total $8,672,001.65.
Yeah, and of that, a little over 6.2 million in consortium expenses. Page 18 of the electronic copy is the executive summary that you're used to seeing in the standard format. Not a lot of activity revenue-wise in September. The homestead and rollback settlement is just the portion of the tax bill that's funded by the state. It's a 10% rollback that all properties receive, and then 2.5% if it's a owner-occupied. So that's always going to move about the same rate as the real estate tax itself. As we start to get in and kind of settled in about 3 months into the fiscal year, we've got some comparability that we can do with actual revenues exceeded estimates by a little over 173,000. On the expense side, excuse me, we did make the payment for the roof replacement now that they had finished that and met all the requirements per the contract. So you can see that in the capital outlay line item. And then again, for comparability, a little over estimates, but again, on the green report, you can kind of see how we're faring month by month and then to the fiscal year to date. Very close in terms of estimates, both revenues and expenses. Current carryover for the at 9/30 is a little over 4.73 million, which again is about where we had anticipated being. Any questions? Also, again, the enrollment is right on now, so you can kind of see those trends as well, very similar to the last report, as we again track the enrollment one by one, quite frankly, in every one of those, especially those lower grade levels. Any questions on the financial statements or the checks during the month?
I was wondering, this not really the financial statement, but since you paid for it, what about the roof? We've had several pretty good rains, so everything is okay?
Yeah, we had one issue that was starting to cause a little bit of an alarm, but we found out there's an air conditioning unit on top of the band room.
Oh, okay.
And there was a cover, a vent door that had been removed. And we had a little bit of water come in that gym hallway out there, right at the band room wall. we had Shore Architects, we had Hash Construction, who did the roof replacement, come out. They got up there with John Pugh. They were able to determine that it was this cover that needed to be put on the air conditioning unit. It was getting inside of that, running down. Once they put that door on, after all the rain we've had the last week and a half, I checked with John today, we've had no leaks at all where the roof replacement was done. So it went really well. We're really happy with Hash Construction, happy with Tony and his team that supervised the project as well. John Pugh did a good job. So it stayed right on budget. So,
Water will find a way to get in.
yeah, that's certainly right.
And B,
We need a motion
need a motion.
for this.
Anyone have any questions other than me asking about the roof? Seeing none, could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Mills.
Yes.
Item B is approve an updated 5-year forecast for fiscal years 19 through 23, and then subsequently we'll submit this to the Ohio Department of Education, beginning on page 36 of the electronic copy. Again, just to back up real quickly, forecasts required to be filed twice a year. Currently, it's October and May. There's legislation that has passed that will push that back to November and June, beginning next year, though. So that'll be a nice delay to enable us to get it a little more exact with a little more actual data. I don't want to focus too much on the nitty-gritty tonight. I would like to schedule a finance meeting with our financial liaisons, maybe before the November meeting, to go through it in a little more detail than what we will tonight, and certainly we can revisit it during the November meeting. But just some of the high points. Again, the 1,000-foot view. If you don't want to, if you're a reader of this, you don't want to go back through all the notes. It's really this executive summary, which is what's our beginning balance, how much money's coming in, how much is going out, and what's the ending balance. On the revenue side, again, the notes are pretty much the same as you've seen in the past forecasts. Just some trends, a little bit of explanation, especially if there are variances throughout the past that need explained. Not a lot of difference on the revenue estimates. Again, the state funding budget ends this year, so we're eagerly anticipating to see what the new state biennial budget will bring, especially with the gain cap, because we do anticipate being capped again, to see at what rate that will move, because that truly will affect us exponentially, not only next year, but throughout the forecast. Two things that are different from May's forecast. One is...
You're anticipating a decrease?
No, I apologize. The gain cap, again, when they run you through that formula, some people are on the guarantee, meaning they may not have as much as they got last year, but they'll guarantee you to get you to that point. Some districts like us should have more, but to try to catch up with the guarantee, there's an arbitrary to meet the appropriation cap set. So is it going to be 2%? Is it going to be 5%? It's anybody's guess. So on the expense side, we did make two adjustments on the personal services, which is it's the salaries. We have included, per our planning session discussion, 2 additional teachers beginning next year in grades K through 4. Again, these are just for planning. Doesn't mean that we've already approved it or that it's going to take place, but for planning purposes, it is included in the forecast. The other thing that we've done is in the capital outlay, we've made a $100,000 budget reduction, and then we've decided to allocate $200,000 of the upcoming permanent improvement levy, which basically shifts the dollars from the general fund into the PI fund. So that's why you see that $300,000 decrease beginning in fiscal 20. In regards to the rest of the PI levy, I really want to wait until we get that first collection in February, see where we are, and then we'd probably be able to shift some more expenditures out of this forecast and into the permanent improvement fund. But I'd like to do that in May, and I think it'll give us a little clearer look, give us a little more time to plan.
So to be clear, there's only 200
Yes.
of what we believe is approximately 500
Exactly.
of the PI in
Exactly.
this one. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess.
Absolutely. So again, you can take that for what it's worth in terms of being able to shift expenditures, which obviously will help our bottom line. Accountability purposes, I always like to put in, it's page 53 electronically. You know, we're not just grabbing numbers here. That is a comparability factor when you look at where were we in May compared to where are we in tonight in October. Like I said, the revenue is within, again, we're where we were in May, within 21,000.10%. If you go down to the expenditure side, we are about 0.79% higher at this point than what we had projected. So again, when you look at that green, I know everybody wants to look at the bottom line. When you look at that green terms of how do the revenues compare to the expenditures, that 6.010 is always the key on any forecast. You know, it's only changed 0.7%, but that's a $140,000 difference. So $140,000 in year one is 20,000 in year three, as that's a cumulative impact. So when you go back and you look 5 years down the road, you know, the 140 turns into a difference of 500,000. So those things change all the time. Again, I want you to focus on the 6.010 line instead of the bottom line. And I think those are the things we're going to be able to address throughout the winter, throughout next spring. With the PI levy, hopefully with some, if our revenues keep coming in a little higher than what we think, in some areas that we're going to be able to reduce, that I'm confident that we'll be able to overcome what is right now some projected deficit spending.
What about, I have a question, what about the auditors that are here? Any time they'll soon be leaving?
That's a good question. They have completed the cash portion of their audit. If you recall, we do submit a gap report as of June 30th. It's not ready yet, where we do accruals. We accrue receivables, reaccrue payables. Once that report is ready, they'll come back and finish. I would anticipate it being done before Christmas.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve? I'll go ahead and second this one myself. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Mellis?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Item C is approve the following purpose statement budgets for the 18-19 school year as listed. These are all the mostly student activity funds, along with food services. You're not actually, the way the auditor prescribes this is, you see the purpose statement budget. This is an auditor prescribed form. You've already approved the budgets, the appropriations for these funds in September. So all this truly is doing is you're approving the purpose. It's kind of an archaic way to do it, but again, the only thing that these things can be spent on is the purposes that are stated in the forms in front of you. If there's no purpose stated, it reverts back to the most previously approved one. You'll see a couple of them there, like the principal's fund. It's pretty much going to be the same every year, so it reverts back to last year. But if there's something not in the purpose, it cannot be used for anything outside of those purposes within the form. Any questions on the purpose statement budgets as presented?
Any questions? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve? So moved. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Mellis?
Yes.
And finally, I'd like to recognize the following donations to the Bloom Carroll School District. Has listed all to the Bloom Carroll Athletic Fund in memory of Harold Miller. So certainly happy and honored to be able to accept these donations, and it will increase that scholarship fund, which we will hand out at the end of the year. So again, thank you to these individuals.
In case you're wondering, number 3, that Harold Miller was her father. Is there any questions about that? Motion to approve? So moved. You have to tie, you guys decide.
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Mellis?
Yes. Okay, moving to old business. No, I don't have it. I usually do that. Okay. Next, we have number 10. We have superintendent's recommendations and reports.
Just a reminder, I think Travis passed out. Those of you passed out your passes for the OSBA conference. If you notified us that you plan to attend that, that is November 11th through the 13th. I think most of you that are going said you were going to go up for one day or a few sessions. The Student Achievement Fair is on Monday the 12th. I'll be up there for that in a few sessions. We will have at the Student Achievement Fair, we will have the middle school pre-engineering class doing a presentation, and then career exploration from the high school, and ag mechanics and welding will also have a booth set up in the Student Achievement Fair. There's speakers, trade shows, again, a few good sessions. I know Rob is our delegate representative. He'll be up there in the morning. And,
I was good, probably the second day, probably. Check out the legislative.
Engineering services, just so you know, with the construction project, we are working on getting proposals for the engineering services. That would include traffic studies, soil borings, material testing and inspections, and the commissioning of the building prior to opening. Feel good about where we are with the proposals. Overall, those are under budget, which is a good thing, so we're off to a good start. We'll bring those to you in November. We're working on those right now with those various firms. We're getting ready to move into the schematic design stage of the design process. The design committee will meet on October 24th again at 4:15 in the high school library. Those have been going well. We had a community forum on September 26th for the programming phase. Mike Dingledine from Community Design Alliance, who works with Tony Shore and Shore Architects. We looked at different styles of architecture, explained the programming and the spaces that we need to include from the OFCC Ohio School Design Manual, and we can take a look at those later here as we have an agenda item for that. And again, it doesn't mean that we're locked in, but it just, with the programming improvement, just means that we're basically compliant with the OFCC School Design Manual in order to receive co-funding. I know Mr. Bratton and Mr. Johnson are on the design committee. The core committee involves Mr. Abbott and Mr. Millis. Met with them to go over that as well, along with Travis. So far, things are going well. We're on schedule. And I think that's about it for my update.
Mr. Bratton and I attended. So.
Yeah. The forum.
The forum.
Yeah. It was good. We had community members. They had clickers. They had responders.
Yeah.
And again, they were able to provide
some
some feedback. We had staff members. Again, we encourage staff members to continue to participate in that. The design committee represents various staff members throughout the district. So. We've received some good feedback, and I think the priority is definitely on classroom space, and that's what you'll see in our programming, our summary of the programming of requirements, which is in the packet. Moving on to 10B, number 1, approve the following parents as chaperones for the Chamber Singers New York City trip, November 14th through the 18th, 2018, pending receipt of background checks as presented, A through G. Number 2, approve an overnight trip November 10th and 11th, 2018 for 10 to 12 cross-country athletes to participate in the 9th Meet of Champions in Terre Haute, Indiana, chaperoned by Coach Luke Sanderell. They attended this last year as well. Number 3, approve an overnight trip for the High School Science Club to the Columbus Zoo November 10th and 11th, 2018, chaperoned by Joe Carter, Joe Rashawn, Dave Goslin, all staff members. Number 4, 10B4, approve an international trip to Costa Rica for high school Spanish students in June of 2020. We're doing that now so they can begin the fundraising process that is required. If you're wondering, that'll be marketed by the Spanish teachers and chaperone to 8th, 9th, and 10th graders because it's being held in June after graduation. So we want to take students that fall under our supervision and jurisdiction and code of conduct. So it'll start to be marketed to 8th, 9th, and 10th graders. Okay, I think Mr. Johnson requested voting line there.
Is Costa Rica a safe place for our students and chaperones to go? There is some unrest in, I don't know if it's just
Yeah.
Costa Rica, but there are
I
some
think,
places.
I think
South America,
Colombia, Venezuela,
Belize,
you know,
I think, is-
South,
I think.
South America,
That's a little-
there can be some concerns.
Okay.
You know, we often go through this. A few years ago, the board, we had approved a trip, to go to France. There was an issue with a terrorist attack, about two or 3 months before the trip was to go. You know, we talked with other districts and what they were doing. We consulted with the board, we brought it to the board, there was no motion to cancel it. I think the overall feeling was that, yes, there's always concern. We want to be as safe as possible. But we also feel that we have to continue to live and that our students can benefit from these co-curricular and extracurricular opportunities. And, you know, I think we just always have to be cautious no matter where we are. You could go to Chicago, Atlanta, New York City, Los Angeles, and you could have the similar,
You can conference right ahead any place, yes.
you know. So. Is there a voting line there?
No, they're supposed to be though, right, after number 4?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, is there any questions about the above? Seeing none, can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Mellis?
Yes. And number 5, approve Jamie Johnson, oh, that's you,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah, it's fine. Number 10B, 10B, number 5, for Jamie Johnson, Kevin Moore, Sean Malone as chaperones for the FFA convention trip to Indianapolis, Indiana, October 24th through the 27th, 2018.
Are there any questions about that? Is there a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Abstain.
And Mr. Mellis?
Yes.
10C, personnel and employment, approved substitute list number 3 for October 2018, as submitted by the Fairfield County ESC. C2, approved the employment of Bailey Royce as a long-term substitute for Carrie Kern at the intermediate school effective November 27th, 2018 through December 20th, 2018, plus 2 days for shadowing on November 19th and 20th, 2018. Number 3, approved Thomas Krusek as a Wednesday, Saturday school and detention monitor for the 18-19 school year. Number 4, approved Krista Wagner to provide occupational therapy services for a homebound student for the 18-19 school year at $103 per hour for 5 hours per month maximum. Number 5, approved Bobby Smith to provide home instruction for a homebound student for the 18-19 school year at $30 per hour for 5 hours per week. Number 6, approved the request of Laura Dobbins for a salary column change from bachelor's degree with 150 hours to a master's degree effective October 16th, 2018, pursuant to receipt of official transcripts. 10C7, approved Holly Derenberger for an unpaid leave doc day on September 21st, 2018. And number 8, approved Joseph Sarsfield, who is with us tonight. Thank you, Joseph. From Ohio University as a school administration intern with Mr. Conrad at the high school for the 18-19 and 19-20 school years.
Are any questions about the above 8? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Mellis?
Yes.
Okay, and 10C9, approve the following classified substitutes for the 18-19 school year as presented A through D.
Any questions or discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Abstain.
Mr. Mellis?
Yes.
Number 10, approve the following van drivers for the 18-19 school year, Christine Evans and Luke Sandero. Number 11, approve the following athletic supplemental contracts for the 18-19 school year, pending timely receipt of all verifications and background checks, as presented A through H. Number 12, approve the following athletic department volunteers for the 18-19 school year, pending timely receipt of all verifications and background checks, for Brian Keith with middle school wrestling and Logan Holbert with high school boys basketball. Number 13, approve the following volunteers for the 18-19 school year pending successful background check results. And those would be your group Group A volunteers with background checks on file.
Okay, are there any questions on those items? Any discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve? Thank you. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
and Mr. Mills.
Yes.
Okay, D, contracts and agreements, approved
You
charter
got
bus.
the addendum?
Oh, I'm sorry, we have the addendum. Number 10C from the addendum, number 14, approve the employment of Linda Millis as a long-term substitute teacher for Mandy Brenneman at the high school, effective October 16th, 2018 through at least October 31st, 2018.
And yes, she did teach that for about 5 years. Well, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Ms. Parker, and Mr. Mills.
Abstain. I know he's messing with me. I'm just trying to. He's been doing that for years, folks. You guys should know. He and my daughter graduated the same class.
D, contracts and agreements. Number 1, approve a charter bus agreement with Noble Tours and Charters to transport 30 to 40 FFA students, Mrs. Bachman and chaperones, to the National FFA Convention, October 24th through the 27th, 2018 in Indianapolis, Indiana, pending receipt of certificate of liability insurance. Number 2, on the next page, approve an agreement with Summit Construction Company for construction manager at-risk services for the K-5 elementary school and tennis court project. Number 3, approve a MOU with Fairfield County ESC for the employment of Brian Cheek as an educational aide at the primary school for the 18-19 school year. That is due to class size with our kindergarten.
Okay, are there any questions about those items? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Also, okay, go ahead. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Mills.
Yes.
Nothing under E, and then F, personnel resignations and retirements. Number 1, accept the resignation of Destiny Diaz, JV cheerleading coach, effective September 6th, 2018. And back in your agenda, you can see that the varsity cheerleading coach assumed those duties and roles to practice those students together. So, yeah, that's it.
Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Mills.
Yes. Back to me, 11, new business. As you see, we have those things for a first reading, dealing with minutes, organizational chart, budget planning, administration of federal grant funds, purchasing, petty cash accounts, bidding requirements, purchasing, credit cards. I'm still waiting for mine, just to go. First aid, food sales standards, wellness program, personnel policy goals, staff gifts and solicitations, online fundraising. I suppose it'd be more prevalent now with things the way they are. I know I get enough calls during the day, somebody wanting money from me that I really don't know. Online fundraising, professional staff contracts and compensation plans, the same for administrators, professional staff hiring, support staff contracts. Oops, I went too far, I can't read that. Moving back to, weapons in school, hazing and bullying, student suspension, which is that going to be changing then? With the new bills?
Yeah, House Bill 318.
318 changes.
Impacts student suspensions quite a bit in pre-K to 3.
Well, that's right. Physical examinations of students, positive behavioral interventions and supports, community use of school premises, both of those are the same. Approve the program of requirements, stage submission prepared by Shore Architect as presented for the K-5 elementary school project. Approve canceling the planning session scheduled for October 24th, 2018. And is there any discussion on the above? Anyone? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve? So moved. I'll second it. Roll call, please.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton, Yes. Ms. Parker?
Okay, we have board reports and information. So we have facility management, other than the meetings I've attended, and all of you attended, but all of you attended something along that line. Personnel labor management, nothing that I'm aware of. Anything that we need to be aware of from the audience? Okay. OSBA representative, Mr. Johnson, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, man, we're just gonna be there.
I'll be
I'm
there.
sure me, you, and Sean will hook up
Yeah,
somewhere.
maybe.
On the line up there.
Yeah. There's some bars nearby, just kidding. There's a nice place to eat across the street, but I'm sure it'll be packed. Really. Policy, taking care of that. Safety, health, and wellness, Mrs. Parker. Shakes her head no. Finance, Mr. Bratton and Mr. Johnson, have you found extra money for us?
I guess let's go back.
Oh, I
to
guess that was a no.
Yeah, safety, health, and wellness.
Oh, okay.
We have a PD day, just so the board is aware. We have designated that PD day. There's a lot of safety requirements and trainings that we have to do. We're designating that day to safety drills. We're bringing in the sheriff's office. We're doing stop the bleed training. There's just quite a few things that we're doing that day, focusing on campus safety, building safety, student safety, staff safety. So just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. That's November 26th.
Okay, upcoming PTO Booster Board and Board of Education meetings. High school PTO, 7 p.m. at the high school cafeteria. Board of Education planning session on the 24th has been canceled. Elementary PTO meeting 6:30 on the 6th of November. Was that election day? I can't remember. I'm sorry. Not gonna put you on the spot there.
Yeah, I don't think it
If it's online, I'm sure I can't find it as fast as you can. Anyway, so, Board of Education meeting on 11/12, middle school PTO on 11/13, and music boosters on 11/13. PTO at 2:30, music boosters 6:30, and elementary building design community forum at 6 on 11/14. And now any of us board members can attend that as long as we don't get together and try to make any decisions.
Mhm.
Correct.
November 6th is the Tuesday, it would be election.
It will be election. Okay. I'll be glad when all those ads are off TV, and I used to do political action. I'm like, sorry, tired of hearing all that stuff.
Sean, in regards to the November 14th meeting, we go over the schematic. What are we looking for from the public on that, with that forum?
We're really gonna revisit the program of spaces. We'll start to get suggestions, input about, some of the things that we already know. A few of the residents in that area would like to see staff and bus parking somehow behind the building. If we're able to design the building in a way and look at the site location where it's not right on top of them, we'll start to actually take our programming spaces that we have and start to kind of put them and say, we want to put the gym in this area. We want an office area to be central. We want music and art and PE spaces to be central. Do we want kindergartners close to the bus drop-off and pickup area? So we'll start to actually talk about a schematic design. We'll provide that feedback for some of those spaces and what it might look like.
I thought you would be, I was giving her a thumb. Are you ready to? Is there, I know I was going to ask my own personal deal here. So is there any date in the future where we might be having a groundbreaking or anything? We're all gonna have those shovels in our hand or whatever, and look like we're actually doing something worthwhile?
We'll have to talk about that.
Hopefully not the end of March or the first week of April. So
I mean, July will be the early site work.
Okay.
That's our target date. I think it was July 12th.
Okay.
Early August. The question is, are we going to do a groundbreaking ceremony at that point, or are we going to do it later in the fall, in October, early November, when they physically start the construction phase, which is about a 14-month time period. So we'll have to talk about that as we get into the spring.
I just didn't want to miss it if I didn't have to.
I think at the earliest it would be in July of next summer. At the latest it would be in November.
I'm taking my wife and I are going to Italy. It's pretty cheap trip, I'd say, for $6,500 including the airfare. It's like, congratulations, why not? I've thought about leaving her there. Maybe she could try to hold up the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Just kidding on that. That's a joke.
Is he recording?
No.
Yes, probably is. Oh, no.
I paused
Thanks,
it.
buddy. You're a good guy. Okay, so, is there any other business to come before the Board of Education? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Oh, gosh. Well, those are always quick, aren't they?
Mrs. Parker?
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Mellis?
Yes, thank you.
Last minute.
All right, guys.